Good day, my friends. It's a very special privilege to be speaking to you at the end of this conference. As you know, right now we are in the midst of a global pandemic, not only of COVID 19, but many other crises, financial crises. People are in panic about disease, they're facing existential threat. There are wars going on all over the world. We're seeing extreme polarization in our politics. There's racism and bigotry and hatred and violence in the air. There is eco destruction, the extinction of species, and climate change. So much is happening that everyone feels totally overwhelmed. As a physician, whenever I've seen crises and loss, I've seen grief. Sometimes I've seen grief happening in a short period of time. You see a patient in the throes of a major heart attack, and you know that the patient knows that they're going to die. And they go through many stages in a very short time. So, first, people feel victimized. Why me? Then they get angry. Many times, anger leads to hostility. Then they get frustrated. Then they get helpless. Finally, they resign. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people die in the midst of helplessness. It's a terrible way to lose your life or lose anything that you took for granted. And I think right now the global population is going through different stages of grief. Once in a while, only once in a while, as a physician, I've noticed that some people, even in the midst of crisis and loss and death of a way of life, they find acceptance. They accept what is. We have to accept what is right now. We can't deny it. To be in denial would only aggravate the whole situation. Once you find acceptance, then there's peace. I've seen that happen right in front of my eyes. Even in a dying patient, acceptance, peace. And if you find acceptance and peace, there's a there's a chance that you'll find meaning. And so, what is the meaning of what's happening in the world? Climate change, social injustice, economic injustice, racial bigotry, a history of colonialism with all kinds of unbelievably cruel atrocities over hundreds of years. Um, we're seeing the aftermath of that today. Today is the legacy of a very unjust past. And we cannot deny that. That's the past, and particularly as it pertains to people of color, whether you're African American, African, Black, Asian, colored in any way, you're not the descendant of white colonialism, then we are, and as are the descendants of white colonialism, we are all victims of history. And some of that history is awful. We cannot deny it. Not some of it, a lot of it is awful. Rape, pillage, murder, um, all in the name of empire. And this is what we see today. The past is projecting itself right this moment as the present. What about the future? Well, if we don't understand the past and how it created what we call the present, then we can't create a future story. So, from a scientific perspective, what I see today happening in America, especially violence, turbulence, anger, hostility, racism, bigotry, prejudice, violence, abysmal injustice is a result of the past. And there is what we call intergenerational trauma. Now we know the genetics of this, we know the epigenetics of this. So, whilst what is happening has also given rise to a cry, not only in America, but globally, for more justice, social justice, more economic justice, more equality. Whilst given rise to that, it has not yet translated into what a future story could be for all of us, for all of humanity. My vision for that future story is a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. Is it possible? And I think it is, only if we are the change that we want to see in the world. So, to my fellow African friends, and when I say that African friends, I mean all of humanity, by the way, because we are all African. Beneath the surface of our skin and the appearance, genetically, we're all African. And the white colonials that we call Europe migrated from Africa about 1 million years ago. Asian, South Asia, and rest of the world migrated from Africa 2 million years ago. So genetically, we are one race, believe it or not, but we are in denial. And that one race has differentiated into different appearances, but go beyond the appearance and you realize that genetically and biologically and even racially, we all come from one source. Whether that helps anyone or not is immaterial, but it's a fact. So, where are we now? We are in a phase which many social scientists would call disruption. And disruption is something that involves both death and resurrection. Death of an old story, death of an old paradigm, death of an old way of living, death of an old way of perceiving the world, death of the way we handle relationships, death of the way we handle our economies, death of the way we handle um, interfaith dialogue, death of the way we actually perceive, experience, and project our world. Death. And then resurrection. To be born again. That's the original meaning of the word born again. The old story has to die. Why does it have to die? Because if we don't see its death, then we are on a collective suicide mission. Collective suicide mission. What do we see there? We see mechanized death. We see biological warfare. We see interference of democracies. We see 1% of the world owning 99% of the economy of the world. We see violent injustice and racism. And we have the capacity now to destroy the world 100 times over. The last mass extinction on this planet occurred 65 million years ago when a meteorite fell on the planet and caused the equivalent of a nuclear explosion. Today we have the capacity to do that 100 times over. I'm holding in my hand what is commonly referred to as a smartphone. This smartphone has more computing power than the mainframe computer that was housed in MIT that sent men to the moon. With this handheld device, somebody who is really smart can cause a nuclear plant to leak, can cause disruption of electricity in the city, poison the food chain, interfere with air traffic signals, um, with pacemakers, with respirators. I don't want to give any more ideas, but you get what I mean. You need a few crazy people, and that's the end of our world, given everything else that's happening, including climate change, pandemics, economic disasters, and so on. So, one path leads to collective suicide, extinction, and I'm not being metaphorical at all, I'm being very literal. Many people will tell you that our current patterns of thinking, behaving, imagining, and speaking even are headed in a destructive way to our collective extinction. On the other hand, we also have the opportunity to reinvent everything. We have the opportunity to reinvent life on this planet, reinvent our physical bodies, as I'm doing personally, and resurrect our soul, our collective soul. And if we do that, and if we are the change we want to see in the world, then we can actually move towards a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So, I have been having many discussions with this particular forum with my friend John Bryant and his amazing initiative, which has now been going on for some time to empower um, communities, especially the African American community, to empower them economically, because economic empowerment can actually lead to empowerment in every other area. And John and I have been having many conversations of how we can embark on a collective story that begins with us here in this forum, begins with us, but ends up influencing the whole world. And so for this we need what social scientists call emergence. Emergence is exactly what I just said. Death and resurrection. The old story has to die completely, and a new story has to be born. Absolutely new. So it's not like you're putting new wine in old bottles. You have to destroy the old bottles, and you have to have new wine in new bottles, as an example. A complete and new imagination, a complete and new creativity, a complete and new understanding of what we call fundamental reality. And that fundamental reality is that we are all unique, that we have unique expressions, that we all know different things, but at the source, we are one consciousness that has differentiated into innumerable minds, therefore, innumerable knowers, innumerable modes of knowing, and innumerable things to be known. If you just understand that, one consciousness, innumerable minds, innumerable modes of knowing, and innumerable things to be known or to discover, then we can have a true resurrection. So, emergence happens, social scientists tell us, when you have maximum diversity of talent. Let's look at our own community. Let's look at our own community of African Americans, of colored people, of Asians, and we can't exclude white folks. They're part of us genetically as well, same source, all same consciousness, different history, but still part of our collective humanity. So when we have maximum diversity, both racial diversity, ethnic diversity, but also diversity of background, when you have diversity of education, diversity of talent. So let's imagine for a moment, okay, that you could create an ecosystem where you had maximum diversity of race, ethnicity, nationality, imagination, where you had philosophers, where you had poets, We had storytellers, we had songwriters, we had hip hop artists, when you have dancers and poets, entertainers, but also scientists, also people in neuroscience and genetics and everything that we know today in science, technology, artificial intelligence, deep learning systems, VR, augmented reality, maximum diversity, but a shared vision, complementing each other's strengths, emotionally and spiritually bonded, open system, total transparency, and incubation together with that vision, then consciousness, which is another word for spirit or soul or collective soul, then consciousness will orchestrate the fulfillment of that through what I'm learning is called synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, or non local correlation. The old story is the recycling of, in all honesty, bad karma. Bad karma for those who conquered and subjugated the world. But now we have the opportunity to not just recycle that bad karma, but actually bury it and create new meaning, new context, new imagination, new story, new vision, new emotional bonding. So, changing context, meaning, relationship, imagination, and a strong emotional and spiritual sangha. Sangha means community in Sanskrit. So, from the wisdom tradition I come, they say in moments of crisis and transformation, you take refuge in the community. It's called refuge in the Sangha. You take refuge in the Dharma, in the higher calling, the higher purpose, the higher vision, and you take refuge in expanded consciousness with integrity, authenticity, a higher purpose, and total responsibility. If we can do that collectively, and today we have the technology, John and I have been discussing how can we create an ecosystem for this new emergence. Can we create an ecosystem with distributed leadership that involves deep listening to each other? So we listen to each other with the heart, we listen to each other with our senses, we listen to each other with our mind, we listen to each other with our souls, and we create a collective vision. What is that vision? Economic and social empowerment for all, a sustainable, healthier, and joyful planet, and a global movement of be the change you want to see in the world. So, the first letter in the word leaders is L. L stands for look and listen. Look and listen what's happening in the world right now. Look and listen and ask yourself what is working. Look and listen and ask yourself what is not working. And look and listen and ask yourself what's my next step. Leaders, look and listen. E, the next letter in the word leaders, emotional bonding, emotional intelligence, emotional resilience, emotional freedom, which means our innate capacity to express empathy, compassion, joy, equanimity, and love in kindness. That is real emotional intelligence. Love and kindness and love in action, because love without action is meaningless, and action without love is irrelevant. But when you have love in action, then miracles happen. Social scientists say this is the time for us to be in touch with our own emotions, to be in touch with each other's emotions, to let go of grievances and let go of even our desire to get even. Doesn't help. Nelson Mandela said having a grievance is like drinking poison and hoping it'll kill the enemy. It doesn't do that. So let go of resentments and forgive, even because forgiveness, not because you think the other person deserves forgiveness, but forgive because you deserve peace. So emotional intelligence, emotional resiliency, and divine emotions, empathy, compassion, love, joy, equanimity, go a long way in creative, effective leadership. The third letter in the word leaders is A. A stands for awareness. Expanding our awareness so we are not always in the manipulative fight, flight, freeze mode, or we are trying to manipulate situations through ego dramas, being nice and manipulative, being nasty and manipulative, being stubborn and manipulative, playing the victim and being manipulative. That's what's happening in the global leadership stage. But how about if we could go beyond that to find our center, to harness the power of centered awareness, and from there move into insight, into intuition, into a form of intelligence that is contextual, that is relational, that is holistic, that doesn't have a win lose orientation, that eavesdrops on the zeitgeist and the story that's not working and the story that needs to emerge. Insight, intuition, creativity, imagination, and higher purpose, and ultimately transcendence. This is our journey together. It's our spiritual journey. And as we bond emotionally, collectively, globally, as a Sangha, as a community, starting with our own group here, but expanding to the world, both online and offline, we expand our capacity to find solutions, which cannot come just from angry activism. Angry activism has a place, but ultimately it fizzles out. There's no room, ultimately, for even angry peace activists. It's a contradiction. Peace can only be created by those who are peaceful, and love can only be imparted by those who have given and experienced love. So, expanding awareness. The third letter in the word leaders. The fourth letter in the word leaders, D, daring to dream. You know, I was so moved when, as a pre-med student, all the way back many years ago in India, I watched Martin Luther King Jr. Give the famous "I Have a Dream" speech, and I realized that he was not speaking um, about a personal dream, but a collective dream for a new humanity, and that is the dream we need to resurrect now. So D stands for dare to dream and then do it. Be action oriented. Create smart goals. Again, SMART goals, SMART, is an acronym I like to use. S stands for stretch more than you can reach. M, make everything measurable. A, have agreement with our Sangha, with our community. This is what we want to achieve. R, keep a record as we progress along our path. And T, set time limits. D, dare to dream and do it. LEADE, empowerment. Empowerment comes not only when we empower ourselves, but we empower others. The great leaders of the world have true self-esteem, not self-image. We confuse self-image with self-esteem. We confuse self-worth with net worth. But true self-esteem is true empowerment, which means we are independent of the attacks of our critics. We are immune to criticism. We are also immune to flattery. We are fearless. We feel beneath no one. And we find validation by going beyond our ego to the level of our soul, where there are infinite possibilities, where there is co creation, where there is synchronicity, where there is creativity, where there is evolution, where we can harness the powers of attention and intention. That is true empowerment. So great leaders empower themselves and everybody that they work with. Leader, taking responsibility. Taking responsibility for our own health, you know, making sure we are rested, we sleep well, we manage our stresses through mindful awareness and other means. We also take care of our physical movement, mind body coordination, emotional resiliency, nutrition, and our desire to help each other through attention, through affection, through appreciation, and through acceptance. Taking responsibility for our well being, physical, emotional well being, career well being, financial well being, community well being, all connected ultimately. Also, spiritual well being. No matter what our faith is, we all believe in a higher intelligence. We all believe that we can transcend our trivial melodramas and go to the source of all experience, which is our own consciousness, our own soul. And we all believe in the essential spiritual experience that gave rise to all the great religious teachings of the world. If you look across the board, the spiritual experience is similar, a moment of transcendence going beyond the domains of space time and causality, the emergence of Platonic values like truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, and compassion, and even the loss of the fear of death, because there's a part of you that is not subject to birth and death, which is timeless, which is called our core being, our core consciousness, or what spiritual traditions refer to as the soul. So, getting in touch with our soul collectively right now is extremely important. And then the last letter in that acronym, leaders, Leaders, S stands for synchronicity. Over the years, as I have looked at great leaders across the world, from and their lives, from Mahatma Gandhi to Nelson Mandela to Martin Luther King Jr. in our own times, even Obama, what I realized is that all these leaders gave credit to the people in their lives. They recognized that being successful also means not only the progressive realization of worthy goals, but also the ability to love and have compassion, but harness the power of our collective creativity and our collective imagination and take opportunities in the midst of crisis. Right now, we have a crisis, global crisis. We are all in our cages, so to speak. We have returned to our homes, we are sequestered, we are in lockdown. But look outside your window and you'll see something that is very interesting. Nature is repairing herself, the air is cleaner, birds are singing, bees are back. 90% of nutrition on this planet is from birds and bees. And they were disappearing, but they're back. Fish are returning to dead lakes. You can even see fish in the canals of Venice. The Himalayas can be seen from 400 miles away. And when the price of petroleum falls to less than $1 or less than zero, you know that an oil free economy is possible. So, right now, nature is giving us a message. When you come back, humans, come with a little less hubris, more humility, and be the change you want to see in the world. Respect the environment because it's our extended body. This air is our breath. The stars and the Milky Way galaxy gave us the atoms that are circulating in our body. The rivers and waters are our circulation. The earth is recycling as our body. We have a personal body, we have a universal body, and they're all equally ours, as are we equally the same self in different disguises. So we have an opportunity right now for what we call emergence, a new story. How this pertains to those who were disenfranchised in the past is an opportune moment for just those of us who were enslaved in the past can now become the leaders of the future because we can learn from the mistakes of those who oppressed. We can also see that the oppressed have the genius and the intelligence and the imagination and the creativity and the art that we call soul food. Soul food is not just what you put inside your body as food, it's what you put inside through your five senses, what you harness through your imagination, through your creativity, through your insight, and through leaps of disruption. This is the moment. This is our time. This is not only the time to say, I have a dream, but I can execute it. And I means we, and we means us, and us means one. Let's do it. Let's deliver the imagination of ourselves to ourselves. The disenfranchised, the disempowered, those that have been treated unjustly for 500 years. Now is the opportunity to take leadership. I've also been discussing with John how can we create and democratize and not only health, healing, but even economies. And we together can actually now find the opportunity and the imagination to actually revisit the economy within our social structures, but also the economy for nations and the future. As you know, there are now movements of cryptocurrency and blockchain and bitcoins. I see a future where we'll be creating our own global currencies that are more oriented to actually creating success and providing economies that deliver services and products instead of being derivative economies where people are making money off other people's money, where people are making money to make money. Of the $2 trillion that are circulating in the world's markets today, every day, only 2% goes to provide goods and meaningful services to society. The rest is derivatives that are basically borrowed money to borrow money to borrow money to keep borrowing money. Our deficit now is bigger than our GDP. So now we have the opportunity to actually democratize even our economies through mutual support, through harnessing our ability to trade services, to trade products, to help each other. We can actually create a global economy that democratizes our financial well being and links it to community well being, social well being, physical well being, career well being, financial well being, and ultimately spiritual well being. In the end, it is spiritual well being that will cause the disruption. No amount of polishing the surface, no amount of addressing the problems at the level where the problems were created will solve the problem. A new imagination, a new creativity, and a new story is, is now. And if not now, then it won't happen. So, what's our next step? Our next step is to gather once again with this group, maximum diversity of talent, of storytelling, of expertise, shared vision, transparency, and a new way of life. Peace, social justice, economic justice, sustainability, health, happiness, and joy. This is our vision. Can we do it? Of course, we can do it if we work together, if we let go of our egos, if we share our practices, if we share our creativity, if we bond, if we complement. Think of a good sports team and think of John Byrne as our coach. And together with a great coach, great leadership, harnessing the powers of both the masculine and the feminine and bringing everyone up to the level of the highest, we can create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. Nothing would give me uh, more joy than to work with you and your group to create a new leadership for humanity that actually becomes the catalyst for drastic transformation. So not only do we avoid collective extinction, but we actually embark on a new journey beyond the seas, not of outer space, but inner space, lie the new raw materials of our collective imagination. And a new story is being born, a new humanity is being born, a new era is being born that even Homer never dreamed of. Reinvent life. This is our opportunity today. And you, my friends, are the ones who are going to do it. We are going to do it. When I say you, I mean we. I mean all of us. And we start here, we spread our wings, and we fly the trackless path to liberation, creativity, and true freedom. God bless you, and know that I'm here to serve with love in action at all times, along with your great leadership and all the projects that Hope is involved in. Count us as your partners, as your brothers, as your sisters, and as your companions in pursuing this grand vision that we have for life on our planet. God bless.